and an outfit that could have come straight from a catalogue featuring country gentlemen's apparel, and determined to distrust and dislike him. But she'd eventually been disarmed by the unflappable charm that met her hostility head-on and chose to ignore it. That and the bloody dogs. Later she'd discovered the reason he believed he'd be the last of his line to inhabit the manor. He'd been widowed 3 years before, when his wife had died in a road accident. He wore his grief lightly, but for someone as well-schooled in trauma as Carol, it was a clear and present pain. Carol cleared her throat and pushed back from the table. "I had better be going, George," she said, not a slur or a hesitation to betray the amount she'd had to drink. The laughter lines round his eyes disappeared, along with the smile the woman next to him had provoked with an ironic aside Carol had only half heard. "Must you?" He sounded disappointed. She couldn't blame him. He'd been trying for weeks to persuade her to come over for a meal, and here she was, bailing out at the first opportunity. "We've not even had coffee yet." Carol aimed for rueful. Flash is still a bit young to be left on her own for too long. He mirrored her regret with a downward twist of his mouth. "Hoist by my own petard." "Who's Flash?" The question came from an older man further down the table, whose meaty red face and several chins made him look like one of the cheerier illustrations from Dickens. "Carol kindly took on one of Jess's pups," George said, the genial host again. "One that's scared of sheep." "Scared of sheep?" The Pickwickian questioner looked as incredulous as he sounded. "It happens from time to time," George said mildly. "All a you has to do is bleat, and Flash puts her tail between her legs and runs." Carol saved the dog from redundancy. "And she's a great companion," Carol said, "but she's not much more than a pup. And like all collies, she doesn't like being on her own for great chunks of time, so I ought to get back." The man she wanted to punch snorted, "Your dog sounds more tyrannical than our babysitter, and that's saying something." "Not at all, Charlie," George said. "Carol's quite right. You treat a pup reasonably and you end up with the best kind of dog." He smiled, his dark eyes genial. "I'll get Jackie to run you home. You can pick your car up when you're out with Flash in the morning." Carol frowned. So he had been paying attention to how much she'd put away. The thought angered her. What she drank was her business. Nobody could be expected to endure what she had without some sort of support system. She knew she was in control of the drink, not the other way round, in spite of what anyone else might think, or any one person in particular. She pushed that thought away and forced a casual tone into her voice. "No need. Jackie's got enough to do in the kitchen. I'm fine to drive." The man on her left made a faintly derisive noise. "I'll get my driver to take you," he said, with a condescending pat to her hand. Carol stood up, perfectly steady. "That's very kind, but there's no need. It's only a couple of miles down the road. It's quiet as the grave at this time of night." She spoke with the authority of a woman who was grown accustomed to being deferred to. George hastily got to his feet, lips pursed. "I'll see you to your car," he said, with his invariable politeness. "Lovely to meet you all," Carol lied, smiling her way round the table with its late-night chaos of crystal and silver, china and cheeseboard. 8 people she'd never have to see again, if she was lucky. 8 people probably breathing a sigh of relief that the square peg was leaving the round hole. George opened the dining room door and stood back to let her precede him into the stone-flagged hall. The subtle lighting made the elderly rugs glow. Or perhaps that was the wine, Carol thought, as she walked to the broad front door. George paused in the porch, gauging the coats hanging from the guest pegs. He extended a hand towards a long black cashmere, then stopped, casting a smile over his shoulder towards